I got it.
Okay. Great. We call this June 8th, 2023 meeting of the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee to order. It is 2:32 p.m. Will you please do the roll call for us, Aaron?
Yes, Steve Rafus.
Present.
Kate Duber.
Present.
Steve Rebuffo. Yemi Alini.
Present.
Matt Stitchick. Here. Luke Boland.
Here.
Ben White.
I'm online.
Melinda Kohlhaas.
Here.
Jamie Acton.
Here.
And Craig Lyon.
Present.
There we go. We have quorum.
Okay. Would you also please do our public involvement announcement?
Of course, all AMATS committee meetings are open to the public, and the public is provided an opportunity to comment at each meeting. Business items are presented by staff or consultants. After the committee discusses the business item, the public is invited to formally comment. Each participant will have 3 minutes to speak on their topic. A couple of housekeeping items. If you're joining when you're not speaking on an item, if you're joining us by phone, to mute and unmute the microphone, press *6.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Next on our agenda is actually the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion for approving the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, moved by Ms. Acton, seconded by Mr. Boland. Do we have any changes to make? I know that we've got a few, so.
I do have a few changes. I know I'm not a committee member, so thank you for indulging with me, but I did get contacted by DOT today. They are not going to be able to attend the TAC meeting in June for the carbon reduction strategies or the policy committee meeting. They said that they have had a significant scope change. Didn't really elaborate on that, but asked if they could come at a later time. So we will invite them back at the July meetings. But it's an opportunity for the committees to discuss the item if you want to keep it on the agenda, or if you want to go ahead and remove it and then just wait until July. It's up to you, but I would recommend removing it until July.
So that's 5D.
Correct.
Removal of 5D.
And then I need to add a project and plan update item on SURSA funding and item 6B under plan and projects updates.
Okay. Sounds good. So any questions or comments from the committee on those changes? Any concerns with adding a 6B SURSA funding and removing 5D SPDOT carbon reduction strategy?
Was there going to be a presentation about the carbon reduction strategy, or is it just collecting our comments on those 5 items?
So they sent us a presentation that we posted online, but it's only a few slides. So there wasn't a whole lot in there. And with the significant scope change, I don't know if they're going to have to be editing their presentation to something else. So, but yes, the presentation is on there if you still want to look at it after the fact.
I'm in favor of moving to July.
Using our time more effectively and waiting until they're here to provide presentation, answer questions. And we don't have a huge audience that I'm sure is wanting to listen to our topic, so not doing anyone in the public a disservice by moving it. So what's the best way from a Robert's Rules of Order perspective to be able to make that change? Is it friendly amendment, or do we make a motion to make the amendment?
You can make an amendment to the motion.
Okay.
So I move to amend my motion to remove item 5D.
And add at 6B the SURSA funding?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. I think Luke was the.
Oh, I guess second, yeah.
Okay. Any objections to the friendly amendment? Okay, hearing no objections, the motion, we can then, do we need to vote on the motion for the agenda now? Or
Yeah, just see if there's any.
any objections to approving?
Mr. Buffo is online and has his hand up.
Okay.
Just letting you know I'm here. I apologize for being a little late.
the agenda as amended? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved. Do we have a motion for approving the May 18th, 2023 minutes?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Lyons, second by Mr. Alimi. You got it this time. Do we have any changes to the minutes? Are there any objections to approving the minutes? Okay, hearing none, the May 18th, 2023 minutes are approved. Moving to action items, we have action item 5A, the 2024-2025 Unified Planning Work Program. Is that one that you'll be presenting on there?
Yes, it will be. Okay, everyone, so you've seen this, but just a refresher, we are required to pass a Unified Planning Work Program for AMATS as one of our 4 required documents. And this outlines staff time that'll be spent over the next 2 years for both AMATS staff, some uni staff who's assisting the AMATS program, and transit staff as well for a portion of it. So this was put out for a 30-day public comment period, May 1st, closed June 1st. We did receive 8 comments and were responded to in the attached comment response summary. There is an edit to one of them that I'll read through really quickly. So comment number 6, we received a letter from NeighborWorks Alaska and Fairview Community Council about the Reconnecting Communities grant that was received. And in that letter, which I apologize was not attached on the agenda, but we did send it out to you all. It was asking that the AMATS UPWP needs to include this Reconnecting Communities grant in there as it's a requirement of the grant. Staff needed to look into this a little more when we posted the UPWP, so our initial response is, don't do it yet until we can find out more. We were able to get confirmation from FHWA at various levels that it does need to be included in the UPWP because it is a planning grant. If you look through the NOFO for this one, if it's a construction project or anything leading to construction, it would have to be in the TIP instead of the UPWP. But because it's a planning grant, it has to be in the UPWP. Very few of these grants from IJA have to be in the UPWP, but this is one of them. So staff has brought forward on the table change that you find in front of you in physical copy to the UPWP narrative. And staff is recommending that we add this small section to the narrative starting on page 9. So this is right after we talk about, the planning certification, the federally required projects, and we go through those really nifty color coordinated items that we have. So right here, as you can see on the screen, where it starts into like a blank spot before it gets into the rest of the narrative. Recommending we add this section, and I'll just kind of read it out loud for those online who can't see what's in physical copy. A title of discretionary grants within the AMATS area. As part of IJA, and the IJA is spelled out earlier in the document, so I just used the acronym. Grant opportunities are being made available to MPOs, state DOTs, local governments, tribes, and other organizations. Some of these grants are for planning activities and must be shown in the MPO UPWP to help document transportation planning that is taking place within the MPO area. This section will list any such grant with a simple statement of work and who received the grant. And then I just took directly from the letter that they sent to us, who's receiving the grant. So DOT awarded NeighborWorks Alaska and Fairview Community Council this Reconnecting Communities grant, and then what the intent of this planning effort is for. So give like a simple statement of what's being done with this grant. I did talk with FHWA about this, and they said there's no reporting requirements on these grants for the MPO. So even though it's in the UPWP, it's not in one of our tasks. We don't have to report on it, which is good because we have nothing to do with the financial side of things or like the narrative or any of that. That's all held or done by NeighborWorks. So I feel that adding this in will help meet what is required of AMATS for this particular grant. Of course, we'll wait and see what FHWA ends up saying at the end of everything. That's it, really. The rest of the recommendations were just clarification, or the comments were just clarifications on things that we provided pretty detailed response in the staff response of the comment response summary. So what's being asked of you today is to review the narrative, the UPWP budget and narrative, and then the edit that's brought before you, and make a recommendation to the policy committee. Hopefully approval with the edit. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks, Aaron. Do we have any committee questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So I gave Aaron some minor edits, so he has those. They're just really technical nature, a couple misspellings, etc. I do have a question about this discretionary grant. I wonder if we should add some language in here that points out that we will not be doing any grant accounting for this, so that we just make sure everyone understands that's up to NeighborWorks to do. We're not on the hook for it. If they mess up their grant accounting, that doesn't impact us at all. It's not going to come out of our budget. Just want to make sure that we're, for lack of a better term, held harmless here. I don't know if it makes sense to add yet, but it seems like we want to, because we've never done anything like this before. Added a grant in that we don't have anything to do with. It just happens to be occurring in the AMATS area, but it's planning funds. So it seems odd to me, but.
Yeah, we can add something like that.
So do we need, is it enough to say please add and have that be part of the motion?
I feel more than comfortable asking staff to make some edits here that reflect that. I know Aaron understands my sense of it. I'm more comfortable having to do that. We don't think we need to wordsmith it.
Yeah, at the point that it goes to the policy committee and they approve it, it probably will meet the actual.
Yeah, we'll have the language, I'll write it out and put it in there when we post it for the PC to see.
So for us, we don't have to worry about that. Okay. Other questions or comments?
Aaron, where do I find that language that's being added on page 5?
Should be a paper copy right in front of you.
So where is IJA spelled out?
Should be the beginning of the narrative,
In the
some part in the UPWP narrative itself. Because it's
Not on this document.
but not on the page. It's already it's on page 5 of the actual narrative itself.
Okay.
Very bottom of page 5.
And I grabbed the narrative. That's
I
okay.
don't know if we had copies, but it is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
As I was reading the language, if the comma could be included after IJA, because I was like reading IJA grant opportunities as a combined.
Okay.
Now. And it's, yeah. But I think it looks good. I guess with other comments from Craig incorporated sounds good too. Other committee questions or comments? Do we have any questions, or do we have any comments from the public?
Nothing online.
Nothing online, on the audience. Okay, what is the will of the committee?
I move to recommend approval of the 2024-25 UPWP narrative, budget, and comment response summary to the policy committee.
With amendment.
As amended.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Lyon,
I'll second it.
seconded by Ms. Kohlhaas. Okay, it's always fun to see who wins. It's like that game where you like have to slap the table and his hands on the bottom, right? Okay.
You did the hard part.
Are there any objections to approving the motion to forward the 2024-2025 Unified Planning Work Program narrative and budgets to the policy committee as amended for their and recommend approval? Any objections to that? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved. Going on to item 5B, transit safety targets. Is that going to be Jamie?
No, it'll be me, but I'll definitely use some help. as you know, the easy stuff, this is the hardest one, so. Okay, so real quick, transit is required to put forward safety targets, very similar to what you've kind of seen with the state safety targets for roadways, vehicular and non-motorized. Transit has their own kind of requirements to establish targets as part of their safety plan. I know there's a specific acronym for it, but a safety plan. So you all saw this safety plan back in December of 2022. And I unfortunately skipped the next part, which was to bring forward the safety targets for the MPO to adopt them. And it's either, again, like all the other safety targets that are federally required, it's MPOs either have the option to set their own targets or support, assist transit in this case with their adopted targets. So I'm bringing the adopted targets to you all for recommendation on what to do. I'll go through the targets really quickly on page 2 of the memo. I don't really know what they mean, so this is where Jamie may have to, but I looked up the acronyms, so I'll try to spell them out and see.
Good.
Okay.
I was gonna tell you what they meant, but that's fine.
So let me start. The first one is the MBDO, which is Motor Bus Direct Operation, which I believe are the buses.
Fixed route people mover.
Okay, thank you. Fixed route people mover. See, I don't have all, I'm not good enough on this. The next one is the DRPT, which is Demand Response Purchase Transportation,
And that's
which,
incorrect.
and will eventually be microtran. Will that be
Essentially.
microtransit?
It'll be reported as a 4th item, microtransit would be.
Cool. And then last is van pool purchase transportation, so that's rideshare. Okay. So I believe those are the targets.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then there was some additional information in there about preventable accidents per 100,000 vehicle miles traveled. VRM, it was pointed out to me, I did not put the acronym in there. I believe that's vehicle revenue miles. Awesome, okay. I'm slowly
You're a
learning.
walking dictionary.
Acronyms are my thing, to much to people's chagrin. So, and so basically just bringing these targets forward, transit's the one who does all the heavy lifting, and staff's recommendation is that we support transit in their targets. We help by doing this by everything that we do. All the money we help program into the TIP for both our funding that we're giving to transit as well as all of transit's funding, and then the various plans that we're doing, the TIP, the MTP, that are trying to incorporate transit more as a main staple of the transportation network. As well as the safety plan that AMATS is going to be working on and the safety plan that DOT is working on. So we're doing everything we can to help where possible. So the recommendation is to support transit in their targets. Thank you.
Eric, why do these targets not show less than symbols in front of the numbers? If somebody would think that we're trying to.
So right now what this is a new requirement. So we only have this 3 years worth of data right now. So any target right now is going to be less than what you're seeing right now. So in the next plan update, you'll see less than the next round of data that we've received.
Okay. So is your question, Matt, can we add a less than symbol?
This has already been approved by the assembly. We're at the point where we're kind of behind the 8 ball at this point. But when we do our update and it comes back to us in December and we do this again, you'll see changes to that.
Okay.
I will point out that is the exact same thing that happened with the state's safety targets. The first round of safety targets they set did not include the less than, but then everyone after that did include the less than because they had more of that data and more of that process in place.
Right, and do I understand from Jamie that these numbers will also come in lower when this is updated, hopefully?
Hopefully, that's the goal. I mean, but after the winter that we had, I can't tell you that our vehicle revenue miles and the preventable accidents will be any less.
Yeah.
It's just all dependent on the type of climate that we're operating in.
Yes, I will say, AMATS, as of right now, there's no punishment for AMATS of not meeting these targets. There's a punishment if we don't actually set the targets, but in terms of not meeting them right now, there is no punishment. But we still want to do everything we can to help transit in their target setting.
That's good. Other questions or comments from the committee?
So this, under system reliability, vehicle revenue miles or failures?
Yeah.
Does that mean just like if the bus broke down? Okay.
Things like that.
I I find it interesting, and I'm sure this is what the feds have sent you, this is the terminology, but Stephanie Mormillo drummed it into my head so many times that we don't say accidents, we say crashes. So
Yeah, this is what
that's
is,
their language.
this is what's recorded in the National Transit Database to the FPA.
I just see that and it just kind of cringe,
Yeah.
because she made it clear to me, so I learned from her.
Is there somewhere that says accident? Oh,
Yeah, preventable accidents per 100,000, so, but that's what the feds have sent us, so.
Recording.
And so we will see these targets again soonish, once they update their, so is this a yearly update, Jamie? Okay, so
Annual update.
similar to the state safety targets, it's every year we'll be seeing those targets from transit. And we'll be deciding what to do for them.
Other questions or comments from the committee? Okay. One that I had is this 100,000 vehicle miles, revenue miles, or 1 million vehicle revenue miles?
100,000.
100,000. Okay, it says 100,000. I mean, still, when we do crash
Yeah, we deal
factors, it's,
in the 100,000.
okay. Any questions, or I should say, are there any comments from the public then on this?
No one online.
No one online, no one in the room. What is the will of the committee?
Move to approve safety targets as outlined in the document.
Okay, are we approving or are we recommending?
Yeah, we're recommending to the policy committee.
She wants it done now.
I just want it done.
Second that.
Okay, it has been moved by Ms. Acton, second by Mr. Lyon to recommend approval by the policy committee, the Public Transportation Department safety targets for 2023. Are there any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved. Here it goes, so you need to get this done by the end of June, is what I think.
No, it's a December document, but we're working on our update now
Got it.
because it's got to go through the assembly process as well.
Okay. Sounds good. Moving on then to item 5C, the 2024 state safety targets.
So as we were just talking, every year the safety targets must be updated. So this is the 2024 targets. So as per usual, the state reached out to us as AMATs and FAST to meet with them to talk about the targets, talk about the trends, where things are at, any external factors that can influence the targets up or down. And then set the targets that you see before you in the memo. So as you can see, these are less than or equal to. So we've got that worked in. And what's really nice as well in the memo, we've put the 2019 to 23 targets so you can see kind of how things have been trending with the targets, as well as the data that was provided to us from DOT and PF regarding actuals and projected. As you see, they don't have the certified results for 2022 or 2023. There's always a lag time when it comes to safety data, so that's pretty common. But the state has done a really significant amount of work to catch us up, because I think they were like 5 years behind at one point. It was significant. So as you can see that the targets have been kind of, are what they are. So there has been a somewhat downward trend, but in terms of fatalities, you can see there is a slight increase from 23 to 24. And a lot of that is because of the projected numbers are anticipated. It's a 5-year rolling average. So using that to determine it and using the projection numbers, it looks like it's projected to be up in 23. So yeah, so we as the MPO have the ability to set our own targets or to agree to support the state DOT targets. So in this round, AMATS is again recommending, or AMATS staff is recommending that we support the state in their targets. Until AMATS has the opportunity to finish their safety plan and kind of figure out where we want to go with our own targets, we're going to continue to recommend that we support the state in their targets. At some point, not sure when exactly, staff will probably be bringing forward targets that are specific to our area as AMAS, because these targets you see before you are statewide targets. They are not just Anchorage targets. Any questions? That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. As Aaron was about to ask, are there any questions or comments from the committee? One question that I had is, there's the line that's annual fatalities and the white line on the table, annual serious injuries. So that is then calculated into the rolling average that takes that number plus the prior 4. Is that what you're saying?
So I think what they're doing is they're doing like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to answer because it's not my data or my memo, but I would have to ask them what those are exactly. We talked about it in the meetings, but it's been a few months since we chatted about them, so I can ask.
Okay.
You know, I want to say that looking at how it's laid out, yes, those are the actuals, the white line that feed into the rolling average that produces that rolling average on the green number.
Are you going to confirm that, James? Yeah. Is this your duty?
No, well, I mean, it's under program, and I'm sorry, through the chair, James Starley, DOT Planning. It is in the program development division, but not my section. The question is, could you repeat your question, please?
And the white line, did that number, like, let's say the annual fatalities, right? The white line, it says 72 under the 2024. See that?
Mm-hmm.
So did this 72 get averaged with the last 5 years to come up with that 75?
I don't know if the 72 does, or if the ones below each of the years, like the other ones there.
72 gets averaged with, I guess, these white ones.
I think 72 is an average of those white ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just as I'm trying to read what it's saying. Maybe it's not essential, just what the state's doing, but I wanted to see if I could understand that, if that was what was happening. Because then it lets you see, oh, if we have a 280 serious injuries, which is quite a bit down lower, it's going to pull the average down, you know, or the 72.
But I think they didn't go with those lower numbers. They went with the higher numbers because there was some concern about undershooting it and not being realistic in the approach, and that they really wanted to go with the more conservative or the significant numbers.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee? Any questions or comments from the public?
Nothing on mine.
Okay, what is the will of the committee?
I move to recommend supporting the state DOT safety targets for the 2024 Children Policy Committee.
Okay, moved by Mr. Leamy,
Second.
second by Mr. Bowles. Are there any objections to improving the motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved.
So for that one, I'll reach out to DOT to get clarification about the white and green and for the policy committee to be able to explain it to them.
Okay, sounds great. Looking at the agenda, we're now moving on to our project and plan updates. Item 6A is the Transportation Systems Management and Operations Plan.
Yeah, but we removed 60 and then 6A will be TISMO and then 6B will be CIRSA, I think.
Sorry.
This will actually be Christine Schutte will give a little bit and then I think change it over to a consultant and we have a presentation for you.
Okay.
So turn off the light.
So we're just giving you an update on our transportation system management and operations plan. The draft is out for our technical advisory group to review now, but we have a presentation from the project manager from our consultant team, Dennis Mitchell. Dennis, we have the slides up, and you can just kind of let us know when to change slide.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dennis Mitchell with DK's Associates. Next slide, Christine. First obvious thing, what is TSMO? The acronym stands for Transportation System Management and Operations. But really what we're talking about is in the past, technology has been applied to transportation for a long time, and technology keeps improving. But we still talk about ITS projects that are installing advanced controllers or variable message signs or some type of technology. Well, what TSMO does is sort of incorporate that technology, but also looking at how you manage it, how you plan for it, how you operate the system. So it's not just placing devices in the field. It's trying to coordinate activities. It's providing services. So all those are rolled up into what TSMO is. So it's not just a traditional go out and build something, but it's really trying to make more efficient use of your equipment, of how you operate your personnel altogether, is what the goal of TSMO is. Next slide. Some of the strategies, these are example strategies for TSMO: coordinate and optimize traffic signals, hard shoulder running, snowplow signal priority. You've heard of transit signal priority, but also snowplow is a bigger deal in Alaska. Bicycle detection at signalized intersections, traveler information. I won't list all of these, but all these are strategies that are plus many more that could be under the umbrella of TSMO. Next slide. We happened during the process develop a survey that we put out to the public during the transportation fair. And what we got back was all the TSMO strategies I just showed you on the previous slide were rated as supported by the survey participants as either strongly agree or agree with them. So the public really liked those particular strategies that I listed, and that we used this survey to help understand what the public was agreeing with, what they liked, what their issues were. And I just, some of the things that we heard, did people understand what TSMO is? And you've got half of the survey respondents said either very well, or some understanding of what TSMO is, where you've got, just under half that did not understand what it was. So, part of the effort was to educate, as many people as we could on what TSMO is. Next slide. So this was just a slide showing the process that we went through. I'm not going to read everything on the slide, but just kind of highlight, we looked at the existing conditions and operations. What is it out there today? What are the issues? So we can understand the area and what we're trying to, accomplish. We developed vision, goals, and objectives, and then performance measures to see how well it meets. In other words, over time, you look at certain performance measures to see, is what we're doing moving us forward in trying to reach those goals. Then we went through a SWOT analysis, which is looking at the strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And I guess better explain that there are certain things, let's say, that the different agencies are doing which are good, which supportive of TSMO, which you can build on. There's certain gaps that maybe you don't have personnel trained in certain things, or you don't have certain equipment or things like that are sort of identified as needs. And then there's opportunities and where you could improve or build upon. And then what risks are there? What impediments are there to implementing these things? So that was what came out of that SWOT analysis. And from that, we developed a list of strategies. Some of the ones I showed you on the previous slide, but as well as others, we went through a whole list of strategies and then narrowed that down based on the findings from the SWOT analysis to a manageable set that made the most sense for this area. And then we developed screening criteria, which would help us to evaluate and prioritize potential TISMO projects. From that, we developed our list of projects and refined it after review by the technical advisory group. And then we're now in the process of finalizing the implementation plan. We've drafted the plan, and it's right now out to the technical advisory group for review of the plan itself. Next slide. This is the vision that we came up with. I wanted to just show you at a high level. The vision is to collaboratively manage, operate, and strengthen a year-round, reliable transportation system that uses public resources efficiently and prioritize network and connected land use through the development of innovative, high-impact solutions. It's a lot of words, but trying to concise all the different thoughts and what we're trying to accomplish here. So from that vision, next slide, we develop these goals. Obviously, improved safety is always very important in transportation. Providing for efficient, reliable travel with focus on non-reoccurring congestion, enhancing user experience, improve resource management, and increase equitable access to transportation. Next slide. So we came up with several projects, but what we did in developing a list of projects is we reviewed the project nominations for the 2050 MTP, both for projects that were nominated for the MTP update that were supportive of TISMO, or that TISMO projects or TISMO activities could be aligned with. In other words, if there was a particular construction project that did some improvement along a roadway, well, it might be that one project could be to add bike lanes and add it during that project. I mean, just as an example of what things could be aligned. So we went through that process of looking at all those projects to see, well, there's already some projects that we may have come up with that are TISMO related that are already nominated. So we sort of said, okay, we'll set that aside and let's look at additional projects now that we've looked at that. And so we broke these lists into different categories or areas. The first is services, which really is new or enhanced services that are aimed to provide system or operational information or provide something more efficiently. And so an example of this would be to establish a data sharing environment agreements. So the different agencies have different information. And so the idea was to make that information available to all the operating agencies in the metro area, so that you can, use that information in doing, your coordinated activities. So there are several projects that were listed under services. Then we had activities, which are more of a management and outreach. And these are basically developing staff knowledge, skills such as traffic incident management training or conferences. And so it's more, not building something or implementing, it's more the coordination activities that can help operations, in real time. And so an example of this project would be to enhance construction coordination with the freight community. So, we've got construction that's going to impact turn movements on a road that's going to affect trucks. It's just to coordinate with the freight community, enhance, when those things are happening, so that you can better, facilitate trucking and the construction project. And then the third category would be specifically projects. And what we suggested here was more of a feasibility analysis, for different types of projects, rather than picking one specific project for a particular location, is looking at the type of projects that we would do and add it into construction projects, such as intersection lighting, is to go through and look at locations that improved lighting would reduce crashes or improve operations, and then look and see how you could partner that with construction projects that are coming up, to try to figure out the priorities of those. So there's this is just one example of that type of project. And so we developed a list of these objects in these 3 areas to be suggested to be implemented into future MTP update. And I think that's, like I said, where we're at right now is we've developed a list of projects, we've developed the plan and the final review of the plan. So we will see in the next month, we'll have this completed and published. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? I know that I got an email recently asking for review of that study. And so that's where it's at in the process, is it's looking for our reviews. And I don't remember if there was a date when you needed a review by.
We're gonna have our next technical advisory group meeting on June 30th with a better comment, so within a couple weeks would be great.
Okay, go ahead, Roger.
I like in the mission statement that it included all season. I think that's really important for everywhere, especially Alaska. And I was wondering if snow storage was a category that was identified in projects. It's just such an important facility that enables us to maintain the roadways for all season.
I was just reading it today and ran across the part about adequate snow storage.
Good. Okay, great.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been wondering too, related to the snow part, is where it talked about the snow plow kind of live tracking, whether there was a differentiation between the pedestrian plows and tracking where they are versus street plows. Given I was having a conversation with our street maintenance staff managers about the idea of trying, the non-motorized public being more kind of dependent on how recently certain pedestrian facilities have been plowed. So kind of like, so that's something that's on my mind, that as I look through the study, I definitely am interested in, because I could see that being a key short-term improvement that would make a big difference. Kind of like the trail users look at the grooming report. There was something similar for the pedestrian facilities. Other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, well, thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Christine, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Item 6B, SURSA funding presentation.
So I always love being able to come to the committees with this fun, joyous news. It's a little bit of good and bad news. So as all of you know, that AMATS was made available about, I think, 11 million or 10 million in COVID funding a couple of years ago, and we were given until 2024 to utilize that funding for projects. The really nice thing about that funding, which we call SURSA, or some people call it that, we have it designated as SURSA in the tip, is it had no match requirement to it. So it was really easy for us to put it towards like planning projects and stuff, which we typically have a really hard time getting match for. Unfortunately, recently with Congress signing the debt ceiling bill, part of that bill was a clawing back of all unobligated COVID funding from everybody. And so what that initiated was a mad dash across the country to get those funds obligated before that bill was signed by the president. And FHW was like, you guys got days to get this done. And so there was a lot of funding. AMATS had about 8.7 million still sitting there that was going to be obligated in 24 and some in 23 that we had to find a home for. So good news, with DOT's help, AMATS was able to obligate all of the SRSA money we had unobligated. So we're very grateful for that. So nothing is lost. Now the bad news. That means that there are a number of projects in our TIP that will no longer be matchless, or will now require match. So I'm going to go through those projects real quick just to give you all a heads up, and I'll be reaching out to individuals after this to kind of find out what to do about them. First is the East 4th Avenue Signals and Lighting Project. It originally had $5 million in SRSA funding in 2024, so it'll need to come up with roughly $460K in match plus contingency to keep that project moving forward. And these are rough estimates. I just kind of wanted to get this out here. More detail can be found later or dealt with later. 3rd Avenue Signals and Lighting Project, there was roughly $890,000 in SRSA funding, which will now be STBG or other sources of funding, and that'll require roughly $73K in match plus contingency. The interim 2050 MTP update in 24 was $400,000 in funding. Now STBG will require roughly $36,000 in match. So that is a planning study. We will be challenged to find that match, but the interim MTP or the MTP updates are required. So that'll be one of our first priorities. Next is the AMATS Tudor Road Corridor Plan in 24. It had $700,000 in SRSA funding. Now will be other sources of funding, probably STBG, that'll require roughly $63,000 in match. Next is the AMATS Northern Lights Boulevard and Benson Boulevard Corridor Plan in FY24, $700,000 in funding, now be about $63K in match. AMATS Complete Streets Plan in FY23, we were in the process of getting this obligated, but it didn't make it. So we're still moving forward with getting it obligated, but it now require roughly, it had $450,000 in SRSA and now will require about $41K in match. So Joni has already reached out to a number of you to try and get the in-kind match for that project to move forward on. And the big reason we're pushing forward so quickly on the complete streets is it will allow AMATS, the Muni, I think even DOT, eligible for some grant opportunities by getting that study in there and done. So next, non-motorized inventory and mapping in 24, $300,000 in STBG funding will require roughly $27,000 in match. AMATS Climate Action Plan, there was $250,000 in 23. That'll need roughly about $23K in match to the already $18K for a total of $41K. And then there's a new project we'll have to be adding in based on the certification review we just had with FHWA. It's the Congestion Management Process Plan Update. FHWA was concerned that it was so outdated. 2016, I believe, was that 2016, 2017, and so that is outdated. And we need to, it was made pretty clear that we need to step on it and get that started and updated as soon as possible. It's a high priority. So I'll be looking where we can find the money, and that'll require estimating 200K for that, roughly 18K in match. So the reason I bring these up is 6, 7 of these 9 projects are planning projects where we cannot get Muni's bonding fund to help pay for them. And so it becomes a real challenge for these projects to move forward. SRSA was a prime opportunity for us to move things forward that we've been waiting for years. These corridor studies are heavily important. You know, the Complete Streets Plan, Climate Action Plan, Congestion Management has been called for by a lot of people. So I'm gonna be working with James over at DOT to see what we can do. But I just wanted to give the committees a heads up that if we are not able to find match for these, we may have to delay some of these projects or outright not move forward on them in this TIP cycle. Now, some options for match can be in-kind match, but AMATS utilizes in-kind match pretty extensively on a lot of existing plans. Our UPWP uses in-kind match, so we're trying to expand our outreach to capture in-kind match. But there are a lot of strict limitations. It's really difficult to get in-kind match because it's a lot to do that. And we have a lot going on at once. So other options, maybe the state can pay for some of the match on it, or maybe we can get the assembly to step in and put some money towards these projects. You know, we've mentioned it to the assembly members in the past, and they've been receptive to it, so maybe we can talk with them again and see what we can get out of it for some of these. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up. It's unfortunate, but it's kind of the risk we took when we put these projects into the TIP. So I'm here to help answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so what was the source of money obligated for that?
6 million of it was put towards a pavement project because it was ready to go. Basically, we had like 3 days to get the funds, roughly 3 days, to get the funds obligated to a project. And there were not a lot of projects ready to go. And the real problem is most of the projects I talked about were waiting for TIP Amendment 1 to be approved, and it still has not been approved. And so, you know, that's kind of the thing. When we take 8 to 9 months to get a TIP amendment approved, it kind of puts us in a bad position if something like this happens. And then there were some other projects, like the safety campaign project that we fund, basically how it's taken care of. There'll be no match for that project for the next 4 years. And then I think there's one other, we're trying to get all that put together and provide that information to everybody. So there'll be some more updates as we go along once we figure it out, because there'll be another amendment coming along soon, and we'll be reflecting a lot of these changes. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because it's already happened. The funding's gone, so it's not like we can be. It's not like we can be like, "Hey, policy committee, are you okay with this?" It's more of I have to be like, "Sorry, this is what happened, and here's our solution to try and address this funding change." But you know, I always love going to the policy committee and be like, "You don't actually have a say in this. It's done." So I'm looking forward to that.
I did want to say thanks to everybody that helped get that obligated, because I know James Starzak, a bunch of folks over at our office were scrambling late last week and all the way through the process, got it over to FHWA late Thursday night, and then FHWA turned it around and got it programmed in a day. So it was an all hands on deck type event there.
Yeah, I did send this an email, but I do appreciate DOT, the commissioner, everyone doing everything they can to make sure this moves forward, because it'd be even worse for us if we lost the funding. And so it got put towards projects that were already underway. It's not like new stuff that, you know, hadn't been seen before. So it's all good. It's just now trying to find the money to make up for it and get it all moving forward. So you'll probably hear more from us on this. I think we're going to be okay. It just may mean some shuffling around of projects for the next few years.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I'm digesting, go ahead.
No, he's public, so.
I'm digesting this, especially because 2 of them are projects that I'm involved with, coordinating with DOT on, the signal and lighting projects on 4th Avenue and 3rd Avenue. So we've been already providing the 9% match from local government on those. So with this other additional funding coming, is it just the 9% of that amount?
Yeah, so the 4th Avenue is the construction funding. So once that phase hits, then you'll need to provide match on that. So that's why it was such a large amount. It was 5 million in funding. So and that'll be in 24. So it's not this year, but it's coming up relatively quickly. So that's why I wanted to give a heads up so no one was caught off guard. Why are you asking for almost $500,000 in match? You told us it didn't need it. No,
okay, so I am programming that.
And I'll be reaching out to you, Melinda, about it.
Okay, so the details.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
That's all I need.
Because 3rd Avenue is a little trickier because it is FY23 funding. So it's match that's going to be needed pretty quickly.
Okay, good to know.
So I'll follow up with you on this.
But as construction, then the bond can be used for.
Both of them are construction projects, so bond funding can be used, yes.
Okay, other committee questions, comments? Okay, public.
James Starzak, DOT Planning. Like Aaron said, many of these projects that were slated for the source of funding are planning products that AMATS has been desperately in need of for many, many years. And so I think it really does behoove our committees and the public in general for us, both the municipality and the DOT, to come up with a way to help move these forward. Beyond the Tudor and North Northern Lights corridor plans, all of those projects that Aaron listed are, will have municipal grant, municipal match sources. The MTP update, traditionally DOT has split the match requirements for MTP projects 50-50 with AMATs. So there's a little bit of help on that from the state. But I just want to reiterate, this just, I think, really points to a need of a resolution to this match issue for AMATs planning products. As Aaron mentioned, in-kind match can only go so far, and is the main reason why many of these things haven't occurred yet. So I just really urge this committee and the policy committee to put some serious thought into what actions can be taken to resolve this favorably. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, James. Any other public comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on then to item 7, general information.
I did have one item here, is just a shout out. I'm sad to see that there's not too many people on outside of staff and stuff, because I'm trying to get this word out to everyone as much as possible, so please spread it far and wide. If you or you know of somebody are going to be applying for a federal grant or federal funding, please contact AMATs as soon as possible to give us a heads up on this, because 90% of these will have to be either in the TIP, the MTP, or the UPWP. And the sooner we can get a heads up to find out what we need to do to get that taken care of, the better. TIP, amendments take 8 to 9 months to do. And if you tell us 3 months before the end of the fiscal year, it's not going to happen. MTP amendments take 5 to 6 months to do. TIP amendments are about a month or 2. So there's, big difference between those. But by and large, most of them will have to be in the TIP or the MTP, especially if it's construction. We've had a number of instances recently, as you saw the NeighborWorks one, where it was kind of, I think everyone's caught off guard on these grants. I'm not blaming anyone, but it's kind of last minute notice. And it's not just the discretionary grants, it's any federal funding. Please give us a heads up. We'll work with FHWA to find out what we have to do for that, and kind of go from there. So if you can let other people know, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. How about then moving on to item 8, committee comments. The members of the committee have some news to share.
We have a public meeting series getting ready to kick off tonight about our October service change. And it'll be virtual tonight, but we'll be having in-person meetings and things like that happening over the next couple weeks. So important information about the service change coming up October 2nd, I believe it is.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Other members of the committee? Go ahead, Steve.
The RFP for the recreational trails plan is out right now. So questions were due yesterday. I think there's maybe another week or so before final proposals are in. So that's moving forward, and we'll select a consultant and move forward with it.
Okay,
Keep everyone updated. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Other committee members with comments?
I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
So we are working on our capital improvement programming right now. I'm working with Gary Jones, and it's important that we have anything that's commitment to other departments or match funds. That's one of our highest priorities. So, we get so much out of collaborating on these projects and being able to pitch in with the match funds, and then it goes so far for building our projects. So that's what we're doing right now. Anyways, just a little update.
Okay. Other committee members have comments? Okay, I think what I'll say for traffic is that we did participate in the BPAC safety forum that Joni was managing, which was really good. If if you want to hear what the traffic engineering department's doing with regards to non-motorized traffic, feel free to listen to that recording. But we are making progress on a number of fronts in that regard with the bike lane pilot project and hiring our traffic calming pedestrian bicycle coordinator position, which is in the works. So anyway, exciting things, looking to make Anchorage even better for all modes of travel. Okay, moving on to then the public comments. Any members of the public would like to make some comments? It's kind of been quiet from the public today. So it looks like that means that we can move on to adjourn. We'll adjourn at 3:32.